way or another, everyone hears about this name. This, of course, has wider implications, such as that people who carry this name are partly responsible for the image of Islam. But if we come to Muhammad himself, the things that people know about him are that he was an extremely polygamous leader who constantly waged wars, who married a child, who didn't say good things about non-Muslims, and so on. On the other hand, Muslims are always seen enthusiastically trying to defend Muhammad and clear his name. And if Muslims are always seen enthusiastically trying very hard to defend Muhammad and his reputation, then that doesn't really leave a good impression of the problematic.
In one of Apostate Prophet's videos, he basically made a video saying why nobody likes Islam, and he divided the video into parts. But the only part I'm going to be focusing on is the Prophet Muhammad's reputation. Now, Apostate Prophet is not only is he stupid, but he's also inconsistent too, because a lot of his arguments are very inconsistent. And I'll just give you an example here. Apostate Prophet is either an atheist or agnostic. I don't remember. I think he's an atheist. So just for simplicity's sake, let's call him an atheist. Because of this, he cannot justify morality. He has no objective standard of what is immoral or moral. He can't be an atheist and say something in Islam is immoral because atheists have no standard for morality. It's just one atheist's subjective opinion over the other atheist's subjective opinion. Thus, his arguments regarding these moral issues with the Prophet Muhammad are inconsistent and subjective, not objective. The point is you don't have a standard to judge something moral or immoral if you're an atheist. Apostate Prophet is an atheist. Thus, he has no standard for morality, or at least an objective standard for morality, just subjective perceptions. As for the Prophet Muhammad's polygamy, there's nothing wrong here because many biblical figures such as Abraham, David, Solomon, Jacob, etc. had several wives and concubines. Also, polygamy was already in Arabia before Islam. See Tafsir Ibn Abbas on the Quran, chapter 4, verse 3. So polygamy was already practiced in Arabia before Islam. That's just the way society was back then. One man could have had several Arab wives. This was just Arabian culture. There were reasons why the Prophet Muhammad had 9 to 11 or 12 wives, as even non-Muslim critics of Islam acknowledge here as D.S. Megrel says, and he was a critic of Islam. In several of these marriages, it's easy to see that political considerations were dominant. So the Prophet Muhammad had political reasons for various marriages, and the Prophet Muhammad's wives are considered the mothers of the believers, are considered our spiritual mothers. See the Quran chapter 33, verse 6. As for the Prophet Muhammad being aggressive, well, the Quran and the example of the Prophet Muhammad don't allow aggressive behavior towards non-believers. See the Quran chapter 2, verse 190. See the Quran chapter 60, verse 8, etc. You can live peacefully with disbelievers, and no, those verses were not abrogated according to early Muslim scholars like Ibn Abbas and Tabari. As for the wars of the Prophet Muhammad, these were self-defensive wars as seen by the Quran chapter 2 verse 190, Quran chapter 17 verse 33 in the context of the Quran chapter 9 verse 1 to 6 in the context of the Quran chapter 9 verse 29. And the hadith in the biographies of the Prophet Muhammad suggest the same. War was always self-defensive in Islam. See the Quran chapter 22 verse 39 to 40. This is further illustrated in the commentary of Al-Tabari and Tafsir Ibn Kathir on the Quran chapter 2 verse 190. Moreover, the Prophet Muhammad only fought 82 battles and only about 1,000 people were killed. See Sahih Muslim volume 3 page 941. So all the wars of the Prophet Muhammad were fought in self-defense. As for the Aisha issue, The Prophet Muhammad's example is marrying a young lady or woman who is mentally and physically fit for marriage. Aisha herself said she was a woman at the age of 9. And Imam Nawawi, a classical Muslim scholar, has said she was mentally and physically fit at the age of 9. Back then, girls were married off young. We know now that girls are not mentally and physically fit for marriage at the age of 9, but back then in society it was perfectly acceptable. Now times have changed. Society has changed. Just like racism against blacks was acceptable only 150 years or 120 years ago, now racism is considered bad. So society has changed. Conclusion here is that there is nothing wrong with the Prophet Muhammad. There's only something wrong with Rizwan, aka Apostate Prophet. As usual, when you're David Wood's boyfriend, you're also going to pick up the same mental